going to crochet with Potter and Bloom.
Hi! So today I'm going to do a technical video. I can't believe that I'm actually saying that I'm going to do a technical video. It's a little bit odd because normally I just want to make pretty stuff in bright colours and be done with it. But one of the things that I thought was quite an interesting subject to talk about is turning chains and foundation chains and additional stitches and what it all means and why we do it. And so yeah, technical video time. I found it quite confusing when I first learned how to crochet, and actually I still find it a little bit confusing now. Recently I did a video on double crochet straight rows, and doing that video, bearing in mind that I've been crocheting for like 5 years, I was doing that video and realised that I've been double crocheting in rows completely differently to the way that somebody else said to double crochet in rows. So there were effectively 2 different ways that you could do it, and I never knew that. So yeah, I still get confused now, so I thought that it was probably a good idea to do a video to address it. I mean, I can sit here and I can talk to you about turning chains and foundation chains, but you still will find that you will be confused from time to time. I do. And the rules generally are the rules. Just checking that I'm in focus because it didn't look like it then. Yeah, the rules generally are the rules, but sometimes they aren't, and yeah, you just have to go with it. But if you have a basic understanding of why you add on a certain number of stitches, I think it makes things easier. So I'm going to stop waffling and I will start talking to you about it now. So the first stitch that we're going to talk about is double crochet. Double crochet is the narrowest stitch that we use, and with the double crochet you will always add 1 chain. And you will always add 1 chain to your foundation row. So if you're doing a foundation row of 10 stitches, you will then add an additional 1 stitch, and then you will start double crocheting into your 2nd stitch from the hook. Okay, so that's your 1 additional stitch. When you are double crocheting in rows, the same thing applies. When you get to the end of your row, you will chain 1 and turn your work. Now, I would say chain 1 and turn your work and then miss your first stitch and then go along. You can do that. That is one way of double crocheting in straight rows. If you miss your first stitch, then you have to make sure that you go into your foundation chain, turning chain. So that additional 1 stitch that you did on your foundation chain. That stitch is particularly tricky to get into, so I actually double crochet in rows a different way. I chain 1 and I don't miss a stitch, and then I don't have to try to get into that turning chain. I think trying to get into a turning chain, that is oh, there's a traffic jam outside my house and somebody's beeping their horn. Getting into a turning chain that is made up of only 1 chain, it's really difficult. So that's why I do that. If you're confused by what I mean about the 2 different ways to double crochet rows, I will link the video now so that you can click on it and watch it. Yeah, it is confusing, but essentially double crochet, 1 chain extra on your foundation chain and 1 chain to turn. Okay. So the next stitch that we're going to talk about is half treble, which is the next size up, and really a half treble is a halfway point between a double crochet and a treble crochet. With a half treble crochet you will do 2 additional stitches. So if you have a foundation chain of 10, you will add an extra 2 stitches. And then you will go into the 3rd stitch from your hook. I had to think about it then. That was my thinking phase. Into the 3rd stitch from your hook. Okay, so essentially those 2 extra stitches, and then you're going into the 3rd stitch, which was the original 10th stitch, if you know what I mean. Half trebles, when you get to the end of a row, you chain 2, you turn, and you miss your first stitch. You must make sure that you miss your first stitch when you're half trebling, and then when you get to the end of the row, you must make sure that you go into the top of your original turning chain. On the foundation row, it's always quite difficult, but then you'll find that when you go back onto your third row, at the end of your third row, it becomes quite easy to go into the turning chain. So half treble is 2 chains, turn, miss your first stitch. The next stitch that I'm going to talk about is treble crochet, probably my most used stitch, and that is a 3 chain turning chain. So if you wanted to do a swatch of 10 stitches, you would do an additional 3 stitches, and then you would go into the 4th stitch from your hook. Then, if you are doing rows of trebles, you chain 3, miss your first stitch, and then make sure that you go into the top of the turning chain at the end of the row. That's the only rule that you need to remember. I found it incredibly confusing when I first learned how to crochet. I really found the missing the first stitch really confusing, and especially because some patterns, especially vintage patterns, they don't tell you to miss the first stitch because they presume that you know that. Gosh, the trouble that I've gotten into, and also the trouble that I've gotten into from missing that first stitch and then not going into that turning chain. And what you'll find is your work will either go at this angle or at this angle. It won't be straight on the sides. So with a treble crochet, hopefully I couldn't get my words out then, with a treble crochet, chain 3 and miss your first stitch, always go into the turning chain. And then the final stitch I'm going to talk about today, which I don't really do very often, but I think I should probably start trying, is the double treble. So with a double treble, we do 4 additional stitches at the end of a foundation chain. And then we go into the 5th chain from the hook. Okay, so if you were doing a swatch of 10, you would do an extra 4 stitches, and then you would go into the 5th chain from the hook. Likewise, when you get to the end of a row, you would chain 4, miss your first stitch, and then go all the way along and make sure that you go into the turning chain at the end. Yeah, so I think that's everything. I hope that was useful. I really do. I hope that I made more sense and not less sense. But yeah, I hope that was useful, and thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
See you on the next video.